Afaday and good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Guam Legislature. The Committee on Health, Land, Justice, and Culture is now called to order. Today's Thursday, June 20th, 2024, and the time is 8:35 a.m. In compliance with the Open Government Law, notice for this public hearing was published in the Guam Daily Post and on the Government of Guam Public Notice Portal on June 13th and June 18th, 2024. Notices were also sent by email to all senators and all main media broadcasting outlets. This hearing is being live streamed on the Guam Legislature's YouTube channel. Individuals testifying shall first be recognized by the chair and begin by stating your name for record-keeping purposes, please. Our agenda item for this morning's hearing is Bill number 307-37 COR, sponsored by Senators Telo, Taitague, and Senator Chris Barnett. It's an act to add a new Chapter 9.7 to Division 1, Title 7 of the Guam Code, annotated relative to the paralegal profession. I'd like to acknowledge the presence of my colleagues, Senator Chris Barnett, Senator Tom Fisher, and of course the bill's sponsor, Senator Telo Taitague. Good morning. All right, so we'll now hear from the sponsor for opening statement to introduce the bill. Senator Taitague.
Sijus Masi, Madam Speaker, and good morning to my colleagues, and especially those who are listening this morning. It's a beautiful day. Way to start the day off with the sun shining, and definitely legislation that would actually help our community in every aspect. I truly believe, Madam Speaker, the paralegal role will balance and equalize the legal needs of the general public, especially with respect to low-income citizens. The bill will serve an important role by balancing the legal needs and resources, filtering specific tasks to perform by paralegals, which may not be appealing to the average attorney. The role of providing services to low-income families who are unable to afford legal representation will balance the legal scales of justice. Paralegals are the key to modest price representation. I want to thank everyone present today, both those testifying and those who submitted written testimonies to the committee. Guam has a shortage of attorneys. Both our Attorney General and the Executive Director of the Guam Public Defender Service Corporation have stated this before the legislature. The intent of this bill is to alleviate the negative impact caused by the attorney shortage. The lawyer shortage causes delays in criminal and civil proceedings. Some attorneys employ paralegals to assist with their caseloads. Paralegals are legal assistants that assist lawyers to prepare for trials, hearings, and other proceedings. They are not lawyers, but they have education and training that provides them with extensive knowledge of legal matters. There is another category of paralegals called advanced paralegals. These professionals have education beyond that of a typical paralegals in areas such as business law, criminal law, advanced legal research, or a number of different legal specialties. Some states use different designations for this profession. California regulates paralegals. Washington State uses the term licensed paralegal practitioners, and Utah calls them limited license legal technicians. Most states have adopted, Most states have adopted the American Bar Association's responsibility regarding non-lawyers' assistance. More states are working toward state certification and licensing of paralegals. Some paralegals are licensed to provide certain legal services on their own without attorney supervision. An advanced paralegal bridges the gap between the paralegal and an attorney and is becoming an increasingly important part of the legal profession. While most states have voluntary adherence to the American Bar Association guidelines, more states are moving toward state regulations for professions as the profession grows and increases in their importance. Bill number 307-37, introduced by myself and Senator Chris Barnett, codifies paralegals and advanced paralegals. This is similar to other professions. They employ paraprofessionals. We want to be sure that whoever draws blood at a clinic is certified to do so. Codified precedes the regulations and licensures that we are asking the Supreme Court of Guam to establish and govern. I believe that the paralegal profession must be guided and regulated by a set of rules that address education, continuing in education, certification, and code of conduct. This bill will have Guam Supreme Court authorize and govern the licensing and regulation of paralegals and advanced paralegals. It also provides a career path for those interested in the profession. Paralegals and advanced paralegals are viable and cost-effective resources that will always be in demand, especially when too few lawyers today are available. Madam Chair, in the legislation, I just want to make it clear that those who are listening, not able to have a copy of the bill, on page 2, line 18, where it discusses qualifications and licensing, this is the area in which I feel it's important that the Supreme Court of Guam may adopt, and not shall. I'm not here forcing the courts to do something that they are not ready to do. So May gives them the opportunity, and I have had the opportunity to speak to a judge thinking that this would be a great relief to the shortage of attorneys. We know that now there are 9 judges in the Supreme Court, and now that they have this many judges, they can take on more of the caseload, but the issue is the lack of attorneys. Time is critical. In any case, anybody coming up with issues or need the court's remedy. So in this statement, it says, may adopt paralegal rules for qualifications, license requirements, scope of practice. And then it has, in the absence of such rules, the following restrictions apply. Madam Speaker, it is important that we also codify the definition of paralegals and place it in the Guam law. This would solidify some gaps that would address the concerns of most of those who are in this profession. And especially for us, as we move forward to either assist as we can with the courts. I know there's 3 co-equal branches of government, and whatever we can do to make all branches of government not easier, but accountable, and provide the assistance they need for our public to seek justice in a very timely manner, because we know time is critical in any kind of issue. Other than that, Madam Speaker, I will save and reserve after those who are here to testify on some of the testimony that I received, as well as what's important here is paralegal programs for those people who are interested from the University of Guam. So I'll bring that up later on too. So I thank you so much for the opportunity and looking forward to my colleagues' questions as well as those who come to the People's House to testify. Thank you.
Senator Taitague. We also have a fiscal note from BBMR that says they're asking for a waiver that based on comments received regarding the bill from the judiciary, they believe that absent further information in the bill, the approximate fiscal impact cannot be determined at this time. As such, the bill is administrative in nature and poses no immediate fiscal impact upon the funds of the government of Guam. All right, we'll now call on those who signed up to testify, beginning with Ms. Christina Sayama from the University of Guam. Please come forward. Oh, if you'd like to testify. And of course, our Attorney General. Welcome, Attorney General. And please join us. Is there anyone else who would like to give oral testimony this morning? All right, if not, Ms. Sayama.
Good morning, Madam Speaker. The bill sponsors, Speaker Telo Taitague and Senator Chris Barnett, and to all the members of the committee. My name is Christina Louise C. Sayama, and I'm a part of the University of Guam's community in the capacity as a faculty member. Currently, I'm an Extension Agent 2 for Community Economic and Resource Development in the Community Development Office under Cooperative Extension in the College of Natural and Applied Sciences. However, in the fall, I will transition back to the School of Business and Public Administration to serve as a faculty member in the Public Administration and Legal Studies Division. Thank you again for providing an opportunity. Unfortunately, we just received notice late last night, and at this time, I'm just going to provide oral testimony with a promise to provide an extended letter forthcoming. In all my years of service to the Governor of Guam, approximately 32 years, this is my first testimony before the legislature. Nervous but enthused to support this bill, I wanted to provide some background. I am a first-generation college graduate, a graduate of the University of Guam's Public Administration program and Master of Public Administration program. I also have the distinct honor of completing the paralegal minor and earning a paralegal certificate from the University of Guam. During the time I was enrolled in the paralegal program, I had toyed with the idea that at some point I would be able to leave island and enroll in a Juris Doctorate program and return to serve the island as an attorney. However, life happens, and as the oldest daughter and granddaughter, I had obligations to family first. As I recall in my cohort, there were many in my cohort interested in serving in some way to contribute to the justice system. A few of them were already working in law firms or in related government offices. Unfortunately, the system was not seen as very supportive or inclusive of paralegals at that time. This bill would change that. This bill would provide an opportunity through the judiciary to set up a process and structure for paralegals to be recognized and become an integral part of the justice system. This bill addresses a workforce development pathway to support the current shortage of practicing attorneys. The University of Guam, particularly the School of Business and Public Administration and Legal Studies Division, has had a long history and close history in working with the judiciary, the Attorney General's office, and the law enforcement line agencies to support their missions, as evidenced by the many public administration and criminal justice graduates employed in those agencies. The University of Guam has previously had a paralegal program, and we are adept and positioned to restructure and reintroduce the academic program to meet local needs through national standards, including feedback and input from the various stakeholders in the local legal profession, including the Guam Bar Association. This bill would help to create job knowledge and skills criteria that would allow lay people to contribute and support the legal profession. An added value is those that don't enter the legal profession would have the skill sets of researching and interpreting laws and policies to be able to contribute as policy writers, program coordinators, and management analysts, all needed within the government of Guam. This bill would benefit attorneys to delegate and oversee tasks assigned to paralegals, thereby allowing the attorneys to do tasks that are specific to the attorneys, and hopefully avoiding attorney burnout. This bill provides economic benefits in the way of adding to the workforce, retaining the current workforce, providing access to the general community to skilled professionals, and supporting the current systems to be able to deliver services in a timely manner. I truly appreciate the efforts of the members of this committee in looking for innovative ways to address the needs of Guam's justice system to better serve our community. I also encourage you to continue to reach out to the University of Guam to engage in dialogue to be able to work collaboratively. We are resources within the same community with the passion to improve the quality of life in our community through the support of the professional workforce needs of the legal community. So in brief, we do support this bill, and we appreciate it again. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Sayama. For your first time testifying, you did a great job. All right, Attorney General Douglas Moylan.
Buenas, Madam Speaker, and good morning to Senator Barnett, Senator Telo Taitague, Senator Fisher, and Senator Kanata. Our office is in general support of Bill 307. I've submitted the written testimony on that. But instead of reading everything that we've put here, I wanted to highlight, I guess, the importance of making sure that allowing the Supreme Court of Guam to excuse me, create the licensing provisions for the paralegals is a worthy endeavor that we believe should be done, but to be careful that we don't require licensing for the existing scheme of paralegal 1s, paralegal 2s, and the existing support force that we've been hiring in the government of Guam for years and decades. Many of them have retired and are actively being hired by our office to supplement the lack of attorneys. And I amplify the statement that there are not enough attorneys on Guam. Our office, like I've said as of recently as yesterday, we're begging, borrowing, and stealing from one another within the Guam bar. For management purposes, we've got law firms calling other attorneys in different law firms. The AG's office is being cherry-picked daily from every department, every law firm, every government department that needs lawyers on Guam. So my feeling is that, and this is the nature of the beast, I'm not criticizing it, it's good for the lawyers. There's a lot of competition in the terms of the salaries, the working environment, the amount of work, the type of work. So it's favorable to the lawyers right now. So we need legislations like this encouraging the support network. For doctors, it's nurses. For lawyers, it's paralegals. And in the nursing profession, we see that they do have registered nurses. But they also have nurses that are not registered, but help out in that capacity. Obviously, the Organic Act requires that the Supreme Court have the authority to, for the most part, regulate the attorneys and anything dealing with the law. But in my opinion, it does not require that the legislature take the paralegal 1s and paralegal 2s and require that they be licensed. One of the general rules is that you can have an assistant that helps out the attorney so long as the attorney is responsible for the work the assistant is doing. What we've had to do, because in my opinion there's also a lack of, in general for the government, of qualified, certified type people on our island. We have actively been recruiting through the University of Guam. Our personnel department allows graduates from the criminal justice majors to enter as a paralegal 1 without further requirement, and allows us to actually train these people. And I have a whole staff right now that's being trained as paralegals in our general crimes division in order to supplement the attorney's preparation for whatever legal work that they require. So in the written testimony, I've respectfully suggested that we be careful not to overuse the term paralegal and to differentiate it, a licensed paralegal from a non-licensed paralegal. So especially a lot of these paralegals, they're on the verge, at least in our office, of retirement. So I would not want the legislation to affect their vested rights and whatever other rights they may have as they've been working towards a retirement. At the same time, I would hate that I would lose our ability to hire our college graduates immediately as a paralegal 1 in our office. And that's been important, again, towards fulfilling our work. I would respectfully suggest, Senators, and I was one of the last group of attorneys back in the 1998 era that applied to the University of Guam for a professional technical award. I took my first year at the University of Guam, and the credits transferred off to an off-island school for the undergrad. But for the college program, the law school program, in 1998, that was the time I understood that they were ending the pro-tech for attorneys. This has come up at some other public hearings, but I strongly encourage the senators to consider requiring that the University of Guam have a certain percentage, if not fixed number, of scholarships that they give out under their professional technical program, to fund them and to require that they do what they did for me and many other attorneys who are now about 30 years practitioners, 32 plus years as practitioners. That really hits the core of the problem. But this is also important, and I agree with the intent of the legislation. Some of the other things that I would ask the committee to consider and the senators to consider, in the code there is a provision, and we found it and we attempted to start using it. If you're a law graduate that's not barred, the code allows for that individual to practice law before family court. Now, the court has not seen that in a while, and it was getting a little bit cumbersome submitting the special proceedings case to allow a law graduate in order to appear in family court. But I would respectfully suggest that and I've spoken with my deputies on this, the child support function, as well as even the family court function, that the Supreme Court be allowed the ability to allow paralegals to appear before judges in court representing the government under the, I guess, the purview of the Attorney General, obviously. And when it gets to a fact-finding situation for the family courts, that be required an attorney. But, you know, the Supreme Court can figure that out. But for purposes of allowing them the flexibility to license, quote-unquote, a paralegal as opposed to a law graduate, you know, to give them the flexibility and to go with the national trends and whatever else they see fit in their infinite wisdom to allow non-attorneys to appear before their courts of the Superior Court and the Supreme Court, depending upon what the case might be. So that is the areas that we wish to hopefully contribute towards this discussion. And as well as in the written testimony, I provided a bridge for current paralegals that are paralegal 1s, paralegal 2s in our government classification system to have an opportunity to, I guess, be eligible for a quick admission under the licensing. You know, some sort of, you know, because we've got paralegals, and I'm not just talking the Attorney General's office, I think the public defender, the alternate public defender, the idea of having a paralegal is not just unique to the Attorney General's office. It's in the code, especially for the law firms, to have that ability to apply for and to be employed as a paralegal. But for those who are paralegals, to give them an opportunity through this legislation to maybe have an expedited process to become a licensed paralegal. At that, I'll submit. Thank you very much, Senators.
Attorney General Doug Moylan. All right, I guess we'll open it up for questionings, unless any of you would like to introduce your teams that are here with you.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, I have John Salas, who's assisting us in our personnel functions at the AG's office, as well as Lee Miller. Lee, why don't you come to the front here? Who's the acting deputy of the Civil Division. John.
Thank you. Welcome. All right. Senator Taitague, you can. All right, so she'll reserve her questionings until later. Senator Fisher? She's reserving.
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I think I'll direct this first question to the Attorney General. Sir, where do you think the legislature could find the authority to pass such a bill?
I believe that...
I'm sorry, in particular in light of the Organic Act.
Clearly, the Organic Act gives the Supreme Court authority over the practice of law in Guam.
And discipline?
And discipline.
Mm-hmm. And admission to the bar?
Correct. Okay. Basically, a lot of the functions for what we just talked about there. This bill, I think, may address a niche in the statutory scheme, because we've taken an Organic Act that allowed the legislature to be involved in certain aspects of the creation of the legislature, or I'm sorry, creation of the judiciary, Superior Court justices, what their term limits are, and whatever the provisions are. This one is not specifically addressing the attorneys appearing before the judiciary. It's addressing and I haven't done the legal opinion on this, Senator Fisher.
Well, but it does. The bill clearly, I think, addresses the practice of law,
right.
And that is a authority granted to the judiciary and no other branch.
That is correct. In certain respects, obviously, we have the declaratory judgment out there. The AG being a prosecutor and a civil attorney. So I'll temper my comment on that in the light of the Organic Act as the AG's power, but for our discussion here, the way I kind of read the bill, and I wasn't involved in the drafting of it, was it's in a way encouraging the judiciary to look into this.
Okay, you said encouraging,
Yeah,
not
yeah.
mandating?
No, it doesn't. It clearly doesn't, because it uses the discretionary language as the sponsor had mentioned.
Well,
But
well, in light of that, and I agree with you, I mean, the chief has cited an inconsistency within the law, may versus shall. I think that's a legitimate concern he has. I guess my larger point is just this. Is this law even necessary in light of the fact that the Supremes could, at any time they wanted to, establish such a paralegal program? So is this law, I mean, if we have the legislature has the organic authority to do this, well, then maybe it is appropriate. But if the Organic Act authority to do this does not exist, then it's clearly, the ball is clearly in the Supreme or the judiciary's court.
I guess that kind of reflects a little bit what I was saying, that when you appear before the courts decide who appears before them in what capacities. And that's why, because it's in committee and it's subject to further changes, I was kind of pushing this idea that give the funding for attorneys in this bill, do something to help create more of a group of attorneys that can serve our island. On the paralegals, my main concern was not to affect the non-attorney types, the people that don't go before the courts, and maybe to build upon this idea that, because the statute still exists, that you can have a 3-year law graduate appear before the family court and apply to the courts for admission in that respect.
Right.
So I was kind of seeing this in that kind of light. You don't have to be a law graduate. You can be a paralegal. You can appear before the courts, kind of allowing the judiciary to select non-attorney graduates.
But you just said judiciary.
Yes.
Yeah, so are you conceding then that this is the role of the judiciary to govern who may or may not practice in the courts of Guam?
Senator Fisher, I've got to be very careful when I say that, because again, there's this balance that goes on in the Organic Act. The justices, the Judicial Council, the Supreme Court does not have the ability to decide if a judge is elected or not, if a judge, the term of the judge. There's a balance of powers, basically, that goes on in the Organic Act.
But I'm admitted to the bar, but if the court were unhappy with my practice and they cited deficiencies and immorality and ethical lapses and so forth, you would concede that they have the power to keep me from practicing before the courts of Guam?
Under the current scheme, yes.
Okay.
That is how the current scheme is. But as to the extent of the authority of the legislature to say who or who cannot appear before the judiciary, again, I have to be very careful on that, because I haven't done the legal research particularly on that.
I guess just...
Well, for instance,
I understand.
a convicted pedophile, if the legislature says this shall not be an attorney on Guam, that would test the parameters on what the judiciary could allow and what the legislature's role in selecting who would represent the government of Guam, for instance, like the Attorney General's office. I could not hire a pedophile.
I agree with you in your first hypothetical, you know, if the legislature, but it still begs the same question, doesn't it? If the legislature says pedophiles may not practice the profession of law in our courts, the same question arises whether or not the legislature has the authority to do this.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it becomes that balance of power that goes on in the Organic Act in our local statutes, as what is the role of the legislature in setting the parameters of the judicial branch. And it's clear that the judicial branch doesn't have its own authority to do, you know, a lot of the things I just mentioned.
Well, it seems like you and I agree at least on one point, which is that the answer to the question is not evident. We need to look into it a little bit.
I agree that it's not as clear, but when I read the draft here, and I emphasize that this is just a draft and it can be changed by the committee and so forth, it seemed to be basically encouraging and saying, we believe that this is important, and Supreme Court, please provide a licensing scheme if you choose to do so.
Okay.
Whether they need this or not, I think is that second, the one that you're addressing.
Okay. I guess we can, if this bill passes, that discussion is clearly going to come up on another day. I think we both agree that there is an inconsistency in the bill on the use of the verb shall and the verb may.
I see under page 2, line 18, I saw the may there.
Yeah.
Senator, do you have that where the shall was included? If I may see that?
Yes, I do. That is on page 3.
Okay.
At line 15, the Supreme Court of Guam shall.
I think that they're saying that if they choose to, the Supreme Court of Guam shall create and publish rules. Is that the reference?
So
the chapter consistent with the Organic Act?
So there's a dichotomy between paralegals and advanced paralegals. Advanced paralegals, the Supreme Court must, but on regular paralegals, they may. Is that one way to read this?
But if I'm correct, page 3, line 15, that sentence, it seems more balancing that in conformance with the Organic Act, the Supreme Court of Guam shall create and publish rules for this chapter consistent with the Organic Authority, as opposed to saying that you have to pass the law.
Okay, and I notice that citation to the Organic Act, I don't know if it was intentional, but it excludes subsection 7 of 1421A, 1421-1A7, which I don't know if that was intentional, but that is the section that allows the Supreme Court to admit, not admit, discipline, etc. I don't know. Perhaps the drafters either meant that, or
yeah, the Legislative Council may need to double check that one. I don't have the Organic Act in front of me.
Okay. So I think that's merits looking at. Now here's a question for you. Would you support an addition to this? Let's assume it's organic. Let's assume we can do this. Would you support a provision requiring malpractice insurance for paralegals? Because, as you know, the drafting of a will could destroy a family if you screw up rule against perpetuities or Shelley's case or any of that crap.
Well,
stuff.
That's a very good question, Senator. It's on different levels that I'm hearing you ask the question. Should the legislature require it? Now, this goes to that balance that we talked about earlier. Legislature can do certain things, and it would have to be reviewed legally if it would be organic and legal. But if the legislature could make a statement on that, which I think they can, I'm kind of leaning to your example there. Should it, and can the Supreme Court stop that? I would say that the legislature, offhand, without doing the proper research, is that legislature could require it, and I would say the legislature should not require it.
Okay, assuming again that we could, you say should not. Why is that?
And that would be within your purview, not my purview, in terms of deciding that question.
But as the Attorney General,
as an attorney, practicing attorney of over 30 years, and as the Attorney General, restrictions upon the practice that, like for doctors, can negatively affect the ability to perform the service. If you increase the cost of doing business, you'll get less of a market in order to perform the service. Because I'm thinking of myself as an attorney.
Sure. Yeah.
If I had to, as a private practitioner, potentially,
assuming you could afford it.
Right. That would be my next statement. Yeah. That I would have to look at all the costs, including the rising cost of employing people, the lack of potential legal secretaries and so forth, the competition among the bar, because it's not just the attorneys that we don't have. We don't have legal secretaries. We don't have a good selection, which means the prices are going up. So the ability to even offer the product for anyone that needs a protective order, needs a divorce, your common, ordinary things, child support services in terms of a divorce proceeding, you're increasing the costs for we lawyers. And that's why we have lawsuits and we have the Ethics Committee to basically serve a jury type of situation where they would decide if you've broken the rules, have your license revoked.
If there are layers of protection, isn't a requirement that an individual pass the bar exam also a safety device for for the people?
Correct. That's the first safety device. But then when you screw up as a lawyer, then you got the ethics committee to deal with, or a private lawsuit. And those two things would temper needing to have the insurance. And in my opinion right now, having observed the bar for decades, we don't need insurance because you're either going to be fired as a lawyer, brought up before the ethics committee, and or sued for malpractice. And we don't hear that many malpractice suits, by the way.
Right, but as a lawyer, as a practical matter, you don't sue people who can't pay. But if somebody's got an insurance company behind them, you're going to go after them.
Right.
Yeah.
Years ago, I think in the 1990s, it was being talked about, senators. And I remember the insurance company, because I was representing Morelands Insurance at the time, the discussion around it was do not require it because the cost would be too high. Okay. For Guam market, our market is so small.
Sure, yeah. Okay, thank you for your answer, sir. I am I'm curious and concerned as to whether or not we are exceeding our power in the legislature by doing this. I don't know the answer to that. I do know that the Organic Act has set this sort of practice and authority firmly within the judiciary. That being said, thank you for your answers.
Thank you, Senator.
Senator Fisher. I just also forgot to mention that we do have written testimony from the Judiciary of Guam as well, generally in support with requesting clarification in certain areas, including that one. And they made some recommendations. All right, Senator Kanata, any questions or comments for this panel?
No, Madam Chair. I think Senator Fisher exhausted the questions from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Barnett.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning to the AG and your team. Thank you for joining us, and also Mrs. Sayama, thank you. And I did have a question for you, and it's kind of based on the judiciary's testimony. There's a section here that reads, lack of educational programs, while the Guam Community College and University of Guam provides some legal studies, both no longer offer their paralegal programs. Reviving and expanding these programs is necessary given the modest participation rates in other jurisdictions. For example, as of June 2023, Arizona and Minnesota only have 28, 38, 25 licensed paralegal practitioners. I guess the gist of my question is, as you're testifying from the University of Guam, thank you for your support of the bill. Enjoyed your testimony. It's a heck of a first time. But in your opinion, is this accurate from the Judiciary of Guam?
There really is a general feeling from the paralegal community, and this is partially why it may have fallen apart. This is anecdata, right? But maybe why there was a general lack of interest was they weren't sure where their place was. And I do appreciate the Attorney General speaking and acknowledging the value of his people. I think at the time that I was in it, I really did have members in the cohort really, I remember their names because hearing their stories of how they wanted to contribute, but the pathway for them to contribute really wasn't there. They weren't empowered. And so as I see this bill before us, it empowers, first of all, the judiciary. If they want it, it's yours to help to shape this. And partially that's why I'm here, is just to say, if somebody wants to do it, the university will come in and stand it up. And so we have already been exploring, because of national trends, to how are we going to support the workforce. In every field, there's shortages, and this is so critical, especially to our communities. Having paralegals in offices would allow more access to the attorneys. And so they can do some filtering, they can, do the interviews. There are many things that they can do to really allow the Attorney General and his staff to be in the courtroom. So I think that this is a good measure, but pending more of research on our side, we are going to submit for an extensive letter to kind of build that up. But yes, we could be ready to stand this up. And as mentioned before, we've worked with the judiciary on several areas. And so one of those areas was when they had a need within their own areas for program coordinators and mid-level managers. The university came in, worked with them, identified what their needs were, and we were able to do a cohort with their people for them to move up in the ranks and get their Master's of Public Administration degree. So in that same way, we can do that with the paralegal program.
Thank you for that, ma'am. And I think it speaks further to discussions that I know we have here in the body about the University of Guam being more targeted in addressing some of these shortages that we have, you know, not just in the government of Guam, but in the private sector as well. So that's really encouraging to hear from you, ma'am. And I'm not going to try and go into the weeds on the organicity or, you know, whether or not the legislature is in the proper lane. I think we're doing just fine with the measure. And I thank you for your support of it. As you as well, AG, I thank you for your support of the measure. And Sizos Masi, Madam Chair.
Sizos Masi, Senator Barnett. If I could just ask, are there other areas in the government of Guam that currently have positions of paralegals besides the Attorney General's office?
If I may have John Solis, who has extensive experience at DOA.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I believe the Public Defender's Office, obviously the Judiciary and the Attorney General's Office would employ paralegals. In the AG's office, there are approximately 28 paralegals within the Attorney General's office, ranging from, I believe, four paralegal 2s and 24 paralegal 1s. And these paralegals obviously perform the job of assisting attorneys, conduct research, interviewing and such, and preparing codes and for motions and such.
As well as alternate public defender.
Public defender, do you know how many are working there?
No, I don't.
General, and but you're sure that the Judiciary also employs these?
I would imagine they would.
Okay. Can we just get, after the hearing, a copy of the job descriptions for paralegals?
Yes, we have it here.
We have.
Thank you.
those
All right,
here.
appreciate that. So thank you for your testimony. Thank you to the University of Guam. It's very clear from the Judiciary's testimony that they are very willing to work with the University of Guam. They say it's necessary that we run our own program here because the other states are not running these as frequently as before, and that there is a need for this. And I've seen the Judiciary's really gone all out to expand its allowance of pro se and other means of having people, you know, have their cases heard despite the shortage of attorneys. And I just wanted to say again for the record that it's the University of Guam that makes the Board of Regents makes a final determination on that pro-tech scholarship, who it's going to cover. So I think it's up to the Guam Bar Association, your office, and anyone who needs lawyers, all of us, to make that impression to the Board of Regents when they have the hearing. And if I could just ask your help again, Ms. Sayama, if you hear about that hearing that they're going to have on the Board of Regents to determine who will be the priority for the pro-tech scholarships, if you could share that with us, I'd appreciate it. That's really what we got to do. We've got to make that impression to the Board of Regents who sets the priorities there.
And Madam Speaker, may I just respectfully suggest that if the legislature had some funds, and lawyers are very important towards the function of government, that it might just give them some money and just earmark it for at least 10 more attorneys, because it's a 3-year growing period, right? And they take the bar. So we're looking 3 years down the line. Thank you.
Sizos Masi, thank you.
And especially prosecutors, by the way.
Yeah, I agree. All right, thank you very much. And Senator Taitague on the bill.
Good last plug, Attorney General. Well, first, I want to thank everyone and my colleagues for asking some really good questions, you know, and bringing to light the importance of, you know, not stepping on anyone's toes. And this bill definitely does not do that. This bill clearly keeps us in line with what our responsibility is to do. And I thank you, Attorney General, for making comments. And, you know, what is the balance between the two, the legislature and the judiciary, and where the legislature can create laws that will require the court to use a certain type of a, well, whoever is going to Well, basically address the courts with regards to the, not fines, but, what's the word I'm looking for? Their judgments, and that after, they must start at 10 years. If someone is convicted of a crime, that it starts at 10 years. So we can do that as a body here. I mean, we're not stepping on any toes. And again, this doesn't do that. What it does, it defines our paralegals. It finally recognizes, like Mrs. Sayama said, who they are, and to realize that they can do more than just research, and they can help the attorneys, and especially our community. So I appreciate the comments that you made, and definitely would like to get your additional amendment to your testimony on clarifying that. But the most important thing is to codify paralegals into the law to know where they stand and be recognized. So that's first and foremost what this bill does. And of course, to allow the judiciary, which I appreciate their testimony as well. When I went down this road, I had a discussion with one of the judges, and we talked about first maybe putting out a resolution, then a bill, legislation, and a resolution to encourage the courts to create rules and regulations to utilize paralegals in uncontested situations rather than attorneys, to allow that. But we needed to first codify paralegals. We needed to recognize them in the Guam law first before doing that. So that's why we took this step. And I'm hoping that the judicial branch will, be expeditious on getting those rules and if this bill should pass, get those rules and regulations in order right away. It's going to take a little bit of time, but if it does, I'm standing by with that resolution, because that was the next step to do, and encourage them, to continue to encourage them to utilize paralegals to assist them. Ms. Sayama, I too, and going to paralegal school, you definitely have the knack to sit in front of any audience and state your case, and you did that very well. So I too went to paralegal school and in North Carolina, and I only had one semester to go to finish, but a family, it came into play, and I had to stop, for family reasons. So I know that feeling, but I'm glad that you did finish, and I greatly appreciate you being here. It made my day to see someone who went through the paralegal program and encouraging others to go through that, because not a lot of us want to be attorneys. We don't want to have to deal with some of the stress that attorneys go through, or the heartfelt stories. Or I know that I didn't want to be an attorney, because knowing me, I'd bring everybody with a sad story home, and take them in and take care of them because they have issues and problems. And a lot of my friends went on to become lawyers, and some stayed in the field. But I did have an opportunity to talk to the president of the University of Guam, and she did mention, I just wanted to clarify this with you, Ms. Sayama, that online certification program from the University of Guam is actually available. So under the School of Business and Public Administration, which was once taught by Alicia Limtiaco, this was replaced through an online offering of the University of Guam's Professional Development and Long Life Learning Center, in parentheses, Professional Workforce Development Center. And if you press on this online, it's a 12-month program. It's about $2,495 to do this online program. The course is 225 course hours, and it's a 12-month time. Can you speak on this, what's currently available now for anyone who
Very
wants to
limited.
start? Yeah.
Very limited with that. I also, in looking at the curriculum to revive the paralegal program, came across that same link that you're speaking of. I believe that has been on. It was a placeholder. However, to speak again, should the judiciary or anyone within the legal community have more specific areas of focus, tying it in with national standards, we would come in to localize this. And I think that that's very important. While national standards exist, we need to be able to equip the Guam paralegals to serve the Guam community. And so I know, and also in speaking with one of the justices, that, I'm going to speak gender neutral now, that they would be willing to provide some context to national cases. In my own experience during the program, I really benefited because many of my instructors were members of the Guam Bar Association, practicing attorneys. I had the benefit of working with sitting judges, and those were the ones that guided me in my paralegal program. We had a small cohort. I think during my time it was 10 to 15 students, really trying to plug through with their regular work. But the benefit of having an on-the-ground localized program is that people understand what the needs and issues are. They can draw from examples. And so even if we look at something that happened in North Carolina or South Carolina, the person in the room then would be able to speak to something that happened here and help the person in the room make sense of what it is that they're learning. So I think that that's the unique characteristic of the University of Guam, is being able to meet learners at their levels.
Thank you so much for that.
You're welcome.
It was also mentioned in our conversation, okay. No, you actually mentioned that. Okay. So it was, Alicia Limbiacto actually provided some information with that. I'm hoping that she would come back and teach the paralegal program as well. But I know that, I see the passion in your eyes about moving this forward. And, I didn't contact you or anything, so I'm really glad that you came forward today on your own to speak about this and encourage everyone that at the University of Guam to start up this program. It's clear and evident by the testimony from the judiciary branch that they're in favor of this and looking forward to moving this forward. So maybe I don't need that resolution, but I'm going to stand by with it anyways. So again, I thank everyone who's here to testify and those who provided testimony too. One from Ron McNitch, who provided testimony as well, who supports this legislation, and asked Professor Sayama, who's a member of the division, to attend this. So he's in great support of this. And I look forward to this moving forward, Madam Chair, as soon as we can to get this on the floor, because it is going to take some time to pull it through. So Attorney General and Ms. Sayama, please provide your any additional input you want to make this a stronger bill, a better bill for everyone as soon as you can.
Yes, Senator, thank you.
Please. Thank you so much. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Taitague. And if I could just get that testimony from Ron McNinch, I don't have a copy of that. And if we could get any other additional testimony from anyone who's listening by June 27th, 2024, you can email that to Senator terlajeguam@gmail.com or hand deliver it here to the Guam Congress building. And there being no further testimony, we will consider this bill number 307-37 COR duly heard. It is now 9:30 a.m. Situs Masi. This hearing is adjourned.
Thank you.